Welcome to Diplomatic Mission Program. In our program you will discover about private life, career and diplomatic life of our beloved ambassadors in Kuwait. Today we are in residency of His Excellency Ambassador of Australia in Kuwait, Mr. Warren Hauck. He and his wife, Mrs. Harrison, will share with us some interesting and exciting moments about their private and professional life. Let's go and discover about their diplomatic mission. We are very pleased to be joined today by Ambassador of Australia in Kuwait, Mr. Hauck, and his lovely wife, Mrs. Harrison. Thank you for speaking with Kuwait TV today. Mr. Hauck and Mrs. Harrison, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. And look, thanks for coming over today. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm Warren Hauck, Australian Ambassador here in Kuwait. Been here now for almost 1 year.
Mm. And my name is Georgina Harrison, and I'm the Ambassador's wife.
Oh, nice. And I have a question for you. How many years already together?
There's two answers to that. One is we're about to actually celebrate our 10-year wedding anniversary next week.
Yes.
I won't forget the date. And the second is 10 years married, but we've known each other for almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years, yeah.
20 years.
Yeah.
So, can you share with us, please, a story? How did you meet each other?
Well, we met each other at university. So we were friends at university, and I won't say it was particularly romantic on my part. At some point, I realised I liked George, and I think I said that in pretty much those words. So I'm not sure that I was the most romantic person back then, but I did something that worked.
Yeah, we were actually studying economics together, and we were friends for 12 months before we actually realised that there was actually something more to our relationship.
As you mentioned, you're already 20 years. So can you tell me, please, about some of your common hobbies and interests?
Yeah, look, I mean, living in Australia, one of the things that we tend to do is live life outdoors. We love getting outside. And for me, sport is a big part of that as well. So I've played soccer for a long time. I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm still not old, but I'm not as young as I used to be. So now I get to play with the Masters Leagues, the older guys. So getting outside, playing sport, we've got young children, and getting outside with them and playing sport with them is also something we do a lot. But we've also been lucky, I think, over the last 20 years. We've gone travelling, so we've been very lucky to do that. So, for example, about 15 years ago, we stopped working and went overseas for 12 months, and just went travelling through Asia and through Europe, and just got to see some fantastic sights. So yeah, travelling is another one of those hobbies of ours that I'm sure some of our Kuwaiti friends probably share the same hobby.
And I don't think you can be in this field of work without enjoying travelling and learning about other cultures and tasting food from other countries.
But as my wife said, understanding different cultures and finding some of their foods and trying to cook some of those foods is a great hobby as well.
Although that's probably a hobby that we don't share. I like trying his food. But, our cook is probably, he's probably doing the right thing when he chases me out of the kitchen.
Did you try already to cook traditional Arabic food?
Well, being Australian, we have so many people from so many different nationalities in Australia. So we have, the statistic is 1 in 4 Australians are born overseas. So we have Lebanese Australians, and we have Iraqi Australians,
Turkish
Australians. So I came to Kuwait, and my staff at the embassy were trying to tell me about tabbouleh and za'atar, and I quickly said, yes, we have all of these in Australia. We have people from everywhere. I've been able to cook koftas before and Turkish pizzas. I haven't tried cooking any specific Kuwaiti food yet. I've eaten plenty of it. I just haven't tried cooking any yet.
So, Mrs. Harrison, do you think you have a hard work about the trying Mr. Hauck food? Is it hard or enjoyable process?
Oh, you know, I cook because I have to, not because I enjoy it, whereas he cooks to enjoy it. So, you know, it's always fun trying new things that he's experimented with, successful or otherwise.
It's always successful.
You know, and trying to sort of encourage the children, I think, too, to, you know, be adventurous with what they're prepared to sort of try as well, I think is good. And, you know, I think it's always easier when, you know, the cooking is done by somebody that they, you know, are familiar with. I think it probably makes it easier for them to try new things.
So it's enjoyable.
Yes, definitely enjoyable.
As you mentioned, you're already in Kuwait since 1 year. How would you describe Kuwait for others?
Look, Kuwait is not particularly well understood in Australia. So, so in answer to your question, when I first got to Kuwait, I was actually, I mean, of course, like many, I have a Facebook page, and so I was trying to give a taste of Kuwait to people back in Australia. And I was tagging my photos, it's Kuwait, but not as you know it, because look, unfortunately, Australians and I'm sure people from many other countries think Kuwait and they're thinking it's close to Iraq and it's the Middle East and there's turmoil. But the Kuwait of the Corniche and sitting in a restaurant next to the ocean, possibly while someone on a jet ski goes past very quickly, but sitting there eating food, good food, and just enjoying it. The sort of nice, easy, relaxed life in Kuwait is something very surprising, I think, to most people in Australia. And I mean, I knew I'd been to Kuwait 10 years ago, so I kind of I'd had an idea what it was. But I think until you're living here and I think experiencing Kuwait, getting into Kuwaiti people's houses, I mean the open houses here, obviously Diwaniyas, and I've gone to some Diwaniyas and been welcomed into people's houses, and the sort of welcomeness and openness that people do here is really sort of I don't want to be too sentimental, but it's quite heartwarming. Being allowed to go into people's homes like that.
My mother visited towards the end of last year, and I don't think she didn't know what to expect when she came to Kuwait, and she got to the end of a 2-week holiday and she wished she'd stayed for an extra week. So, you know, I think, you know, it's surprising because people have these perceptions of what they think Kuwait is like, and when they come here, you know, it's like we have this little secret about, you know, how good it actually is, and you know, we've you know, people come and we let them in on our little secret. You know, so she really enjoyed her time here, and you know, I hope, you know, over the course of our time here in Kuwait, we can encourage others to kind of come out and visit and tell their friends and tell their friends, and you know, get more people out.
Much. And is it was your own choice, Your Excellency, to serve your people in Kuwait?
What happens in our foreign service is sometimes you get asked to do a job. So I was look, very proud of the fact that that I got a call to say, would I consider being our ambassador in Kuwait? Within our foreign service, you can say no, and you're not. There's no implications for saying no. It's okay if you don't want to go somewhere. And there are places that I wouldn't go, mainly for family reasons. So, but I was quite happy to do it. I'd been here before. I knew what it was like. I'd worked on Middle East issues before, so yeah, I was quite happy to come.
And tomorrow is weekend. How are you planning to spend your time?
My role here in Kuwait is quite diverse, and so I have to be quite selective with the activities that I undertake because my time is quite limited. We've talked about family before, and I try and fit my my outside activities into school hours, and certainly, you know, I meet with the other ambassadors' wives regularly, both through events and in groups where we share common interests, and some of them I classify as you know, personal friends. So, you know, I see them outside as well. You know, they're a fascinating and really interesting group of women, you know, many of whom are professionals in their own right. They're highly educated, and you know, I really enjoy the time that I spend with them. But you know, I also get involved, you know, in the work of the embassy, and also, I guess, a strong passion of mine is, you know, is to create this sense of community for Australians within Kuwait. So, you know, a lot of my time also is shared between, you know, arranging events that bring the community closer together, but also inevitably when we have functions like the National Day that we'll be holding in the next couple of weeks, but also events here at the residence. You know, I oversee all of the comings and goings and happenings associated with that. So, yeah, like everybody, I like my personal time too, and so trying to find a balance between all of that is quite challenging. But
Your Excellency, I would like to talk a little bit about your career life. As you know, you held a range of important positions such as Executive Officer in Iraq Task Force and Deputy Director in Economic Analytical Unit. So can you tell me please more about how and where did you start it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've done any number of jobs, I think, even before what I would class as my career started. I mean, my dad, for example, is a welder and a carpenter. So I paid my way through university welding. I've made more pool fences than there are probably pools in Kuwait. I've been a waiter, I've been a bus driver, I've been a tutor. So even before I started, as I said, my career, I'd done any number of jobs along the way. But then I started working in our Ministry of Finance. So I did a few different jobs in there, including a year up in our Parliament House as an advisor to one of our ministers, sort of a junior minister for finance, which was a fantastic experience working in a political environment for 12 months, and not one that I need to do again anytime soon. I was quite happy to finish and move on. So I did that. I managed a section for a little while that looked at sort of our spending on the foreign affairs and trade work, and that then led me into working for the Foreign Service, where I've done. I joined as a specialist economist, and so I've written a book on trying to build the economy of a Pacific Island country, Solomon Islands. I wrote a book on economic developments in this region, Kuwait, Oman, UAE, a couple of other countries. And as you said, I spent some time on our Iraq desk. Then I focused on Southeast Asia. So now coming to Kuwait and living in Kuwait is coming back to the Middle East for me. I mean, the life of someone in the Foreign Service is, you know, you'll be here for a few years and you'll focus on this, and then a phone call to ask, would you go and do this, will come, and you'll be back doing something that you previously had experience on.
So you did career by your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
it's not uncommon for children in Australia to start working at 15 in a part-time job, you know, whether it be in one of the local shops or delivering newspapers or you know, something just to earn a little bit of extra money, and you know, use that money then to help educate themselves, which is what both of us did, really. Yeah.
I'm sure there was like some hard moments. So, Miss Harrison, how did you motivate and support Mr. Hauck in that moments?
Oh, probably financially, to be perfectly honest.
Thanks.
There were times when we were going through university where I was working and my husband wasn't, and you know, that's life as a partnership, you know, and so, you know, financial, you know, we used to buy groceries together and support each other like that way. He would cook and I would pay for the ingredients and things like that. That's you know, what a partnership's about.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I think, or the nature of a relationship is that you both go through, you know, hard times and easier times, and you just hope that you're both not at the hard time at the same time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and that's right. When we first started to see each other, yes, I certainly didn't have any money, and even we shifted to the UK for 12 months, and it was just after September the 11th, so the London market dropped out, and I had trouble getting a job. George was working, so again supporting me along the way, but then there's been other hard times. We were in Indonesia and bomb went off there, and someone from the embassy was unfortunately taken from us. And as you said, you know, you support each other through those times. It's not a one-way street. I think we both lean on each other.
Mm-hmm. It's really an interesting story. Mr. Hauck, what countries did you serve before?
Being a sort of, I keep saying recent, a recent transfer into our foreign ministry. Not so recent. I've been with the foreign ministry for 14 years now. So I've served in Indonesia with our foreign ministry. That, for us, that's our largest embassy overseas. So I headed up our economic section there, and it's a big relationship for Australia. We had, I don't know, I lost count of the number of ministers. I think we had about 5 Prime Minister visits while I was there. It sounds flippant not knowing how many times your Prime Minister came through, but it's just such a big post for us with so much going on. So yeah, I've served in Indonesia, and that's my only posting with our Foreign Service. As I said, we personally shifted. We travelled around and lived in the UK for a while, but not earning a lot of money while we were over there.
It's all about the experience.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Your Excellency, tell us please more about Australia's relationship with Kuwait and how Australian contribution to the liberation of Kuwait in 1991 helped to tie those relations.
Yeah, look, I mean, we keep our line, and you know, you have sort of, I'm being very frank, sort of standard media lines that you use, and we always say we have a very strong relationship, a strong political relationship, and we do. I think sometimes we set our ambition a little low. You know, we say we're a long way from each other, but the reality is that we're not that far away. And I keep telling people who say that we're a long way from each other that, you know, if I'm on a plane, Australia is no further than the US. So it's good, but I think we could do better. Of course, we were part of the coalition in 1991 to liberate Kuwait. We had about 1,800 military personnel at the time. mainly Navy boats as well. And it was a big thing for us. We committed very quickly to go in and be part of the coalition. But that doesn't by itself define the relationship. If I'm thinking about the Australia-Kuwait relationship, I think going back to the 1960s, we had your businessmen coming to Australia, beginning to develop the Australia agriculture, some agriculture markets, and starting the live sheep trade between Australia and Kuwait. Even back before that, there was an Australian, wonderful photos. There's an Australian who came to Kuwait and was on some of the early dhows, and he has photographs from it. I think the name is Alan Villiers or something, and so photographs from really early Kuwait sort of life. So we've got connections going back a long way. Kuwait's done wonderful things on humanitarian support in the region, and so just shortly after I joined, there was the third pledging conference for Australia, for Syria, not for Australia. And I mean, I was pretty humbled to sit there. You had prime ministers, you had presidents, you had the Emir. Kuwait gave $500 million. So pretty humbled to sit there and see that, and pleased that Australia was able to participate and work with Kuwait on that. And of course, our economic relationship as well is good. But as I said, it's a long answer to your question, but yeah, we were there in 1991. We were part of the liberation, but that's a recognition of, I think, the relationship that was already there. And a recognition of just how important to us. And they loved their time in Australia. I mean, you talked to a few too.
No, they did. Many of them who studied there are, looking forward to going back again to further educate themselves, which I think is, a testament, to, just, how well Australia does education and what a nice place it is to actually study in.
Because I have many friends that are studying in Australia, and they told me about amazing and friendly country, very friendly environment.
Yeah.
So invited me to visit your country, and I'm very excited to visit your country. As a tourist, which places would you recommend me to visit?
Look, I mean, there are so many because it's such a big country. And it's hard to appreciate how large a country it is until you're there. Even for us, we went. One place, for example, is Uluru or Ayers Rock, and another national park called Kakadu. So Ayers Rock is the iconic sort of symbol of Australia, the big rock in the middle. We flew into a town called Alice Springs, which I naively, many years ago, thought was close to Uluru, but it was, 6 hours drive, I think. I thought it was like an hour. So even for us, we don't appreciate how big it is sometimes. But that means that it just depends on whoever's coming as to what they want to do. If you like fishing, and my sister, who is a mad fisherman,
or woman,
yeah. She lives up in northern Queensland, and they have fantastic fishing up there. My dad used to. You couldn't do this anymore because we've stopped it. But he used to go to the coast of New South Wales and catch sharks off one of the wharfs. So growing up, I had shark teeth sitting on the wall at home. You can't do that anymore. We don't condone that. But so there's those experiences. There's for families. If you're going with a family, then you'd want to go to. Well, you could go anywhere, but the Gold Coast and the entertainment parks. Yeah. But for me, there's a couple of places that I keep saying One is, as I said, Uluru and Kakadu, so the Northern Territory, which is it's really outback Australia, and the second is Western Australia, and I should tell our states I'm saying this so that they can pay me for plugging them. But Western Australia, there's off the coast of Western Australia is a reef called Ningaloo Reef, and you literally walk off the beach and you're in fish and there's coral there, and there's no one there. It's you and a few other things. You can have funny experiences like when I had someone swim up to me and tell me there was a shark over there, and I didn't know if he meant it was there's reef sharks which are small and you can actually look at them, or whether he meant a big shark. Turns out he meant a small shark and I should go have a look, but I didn't know. I got out of the water because I wasn't sure.
Your Excellency, can you tell us please about the most famous festival and events held in Australia?
Look, there's quite a few, and of course when I think about festivals and events in Australia, I immediately think sport, because it is, if I could say it this way, it's almost like a religion for us. We love our sport. So at the moment, for example, we have the Australian Open on in Australia, so the tennis. And just on my way here today, I must say I was sad to see that an Australian, Leighton Hewitt, who used to be the world number one, just lost his match, and that was his final ever match. He's retiring. So the sporting events, the tennis, of course last year we had the Asian Cup football, and so I had the pleasure of going to see Kuwait play in Canberra against the UAE. Kuwait deserved to win. The UAE won, but Kuwait played with more heart, I must say. Probably upsetting Emiratis who are listening. So we've had the Asian Cup football. We have in Australia the Formula One is on every year. We have the horse racing, so we have the Melbourne Cup as well, and Fashions of the Field, which is fashion around the Melbourne Cup. But in addition to that, we have, for example, coming up next week, January the 26th is our National Day. So we'll have Australia Day celebrations across Australia. So you'll have, that mainly consists of, to be honest, barbecues and people sitting around and eating.
Sorry if I can interrupt. Yeah. A really nice part of Australia Day in Australia is the citizenship ceremonies that we actually have on that day. You know, we've spoken about multiculturalism, but Australia Day is the day where we have big ceremonies where we, you know, welcome new citizens to Australia and you know, from all around the world, and for me that's something really special about Australia Day.
Yeah, no, it is, and because Australia Day is a celebration of our diversity, is what it's sort of designed as these days. So there'll be, in our own, where we live, Canberra, there'll be a concert, there is every year, and you can hear it almost the entire city. Yeah. So as I said, that's coming up in just a few days, which is one of our big celebrations as well. But of course, you know, even stuff like the New Year's Eve, the embassy, we've just started a Facebook account, and we put the Australia Day fireworks up on Facebook, and that was probably one of our most watched posts up on Facebook. So you know, those kind of things. I think people love Sydney Harbour Bridge, the fireworks coming down, one of the first New Year's Eves in the world. So it depends again on what people want to do.
Yeah,
you have a nice program.
Yeah, I mean there's Sydney Fashion Week, and you know. Oh.
Are you planning to organise some of those events here in Kuwait?
It's a busy time for us at the moment. We've just had there's a master chef, Arab master chef called Chef Tarek, who is an ambassador for Australian meat. We just had him here at the residence cooking for us and doing showing off Australian meat produce. I was out there with an apron on in front of the barbecue cooking myself. We've got a minister coming next week with a business delegation. We'll do a National Day function over the next 2 weeks as well, which will showcase Australian tourism. And we're working with the Sultan Centre to showcase Australian food. So yes, we are organising a number of things, not just for Australia Day, but to showcase Australia over the course of the next week. And that's, as I said, that's just in the next week. There will be more beyond that, but I think maybe in about a week and a half after we finish this program, I might have a rest first and then move on to the next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, and I can confidently say Mrs. Ambassador, for joining us today and for sharing with us a very interesting and exciting moments of your private and professional life.
You're
Thank you.
Yeah.